Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure and honor of having Paul Bamert with Case Status. Welcome, Paul.
Ken, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So today we want to talk about client engagement. One of the biggest complaints clients have about lawyers is that they don't call them back, they don't communicate, they don't keep them informed of what's going on in their case. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think not only would I agree with it, I would cite that the bar complaints have been number one for a while. We talk about that with a lot of attorneys. I mean, it's been the number one complaint for 2 decades, maybe. So communication, I wrote a little note about playing tennis with my son the other day, and there was a flag football team practicing, and the coach yelled out to these little 8 and 9-year-olds, "What's the most important thing in a relationship?" And one kid shouted communication, and the other kid shouted trust. And I was blown away by the simple minds that can get it, right? And so I think that we are challenged as an industry to show up and meet our consumer clients where they expect to be met. And that's changed. It keeps changing. It's a fast changing experience in the day and age of Uber and Amazon. But communication is what it's all about. Engagement experience is what it's all about. And at Case Status, that's what we're trying to help law firms scale. We're trying to up-level the industry.
So somebody that's never heard of Case Status, can you explain what it does and how it does it?
Yeah. So Case Status, we've been around about 6 years, and we started with a simple idea of being proactive to update what was happening in a case. From a legal professional's point of view, maybe a personal injury attorney, that's listening to this, there was a lot of, trying to do the lawyer work, but you're getting inundated by these clients with the same question over and over again. So our founder, an attorney, a personal injury attorney, had the idea that we can push this information out, right? In our single source of truth, our case management software, that information is there. If you could be selective about what is presentable, push it out. And so that was the genesis, the origin story. And we've evolved. So I think the really cool thing about the first 5 years, Ken, is kind of a present tense of keeping a client updated in what's going on now in your case, in your matter, and being able to have that transparency in that real time, and then a little bit of communication. But what's really evolving and what's really cool in this day and age of tech and data-driven AI and things like that is now we're moving into the future tense. We can start to look at the contents of a communication, the tone of a communication. We can start to put a pulse on how that client is perceiving the legal team without even asking them. And so we move from current state to sort of this future state predictiveness of what should happen or what will happen. But again, it's all about that relationship. We've always tried to make a more proactive, engagement between the two parties. And now we're just trying to be a little bit more foreshadowing and future casting in what that relationship looks like. Ultimately, it comes back to the same thing. You want that client to have an awesome experience. In the medical field, we call it bedside manner. And you want them to be raving fans by the end. And to your point of this listenership, that's when they become your best marketing asset that you can then use in your next round of intake. Your happy client alumni are your best marketing asset.
Referrals are the cheapest way to get a case.
That's right. That's right. And we think about, and the clients are the raw materials, right? So you get the reviews, but what's behind the review? It's a person. It's a person who's just really a raving fan. So the more raw materials of raving fans you have, then you can use it in that intake cycle.
I hear what you're saying, but how does it do it? I mean, how does it hook up with your case management system or?
Yes, absolutely 100%. So we don't seek to be another user interface or another source of truth, right? We believe at Case Status that your case management software is your single source of truth. That's where all of the backstage action is happening. So our intent is to plug into that. So if you look at our integrations, I think we're at 16 now and growing. We're tying into the best case management systems out there. And the idea is, again, to pull that data, stages, sort of overall information, documents, messages, everything comes from the case management software. So that's the sort of plug-in approach. If you're on the client side, right? If you're a consumer, the beauty of it is you don't really care about what's happening in the sausage making back office. What you care about is that you have access and transparency in the thing that is tethered to your hand, right? The mobile device. Research
Right.
shows 5 hours a day on this device, 93% of that time in a highly rated app, not browsers, not other things. It's the apps that drive it. So Case Status has an app. You can get it in the Android store or the Apple store. And we have a 4.9 rating with over 35,000 consumer reviews, unsolicited consumer reviews. So that's the client side, right? From the staff side, the really cool thing is you stay in your case management system. So from a user experience, right, we sit at this, I'm at my desk, you're at your desk, right? We sit on laptops all day as professionals, and chances are you're in your case management system on a laptop, right? On a browser in the SaaS world. But the beauty is we bring a window of all of the tools right into the Neos, the Litify, the Smart Advocate, Case Peer. We're right there in there so that when you're in a case, looking at the back office stuff, you have all of the communications, right? The threads, the documents, the appointments, everything is there in that window. So it's kind of a window in window. So that's where it really, the rubber meets the road is you can start to fire email. You can start to fire text. You can start to fire all these other legacy communication tools. And really what you're doing is you're communicating from your case management software. So staff love it. Clients love it. And then we get into the operational efficiencies, which we can expand. But it ultimately starts with that, making it simple for clients, making it simple for staff. If you can get that foundation, now you can start to build much better incremental outcomes that we get into, like measuring client satisfaction, right? You can't really drive happy clients if you're not measuring it. So that's where we get into next year. But simplicity of that relationship is where we start.
I guess the deal is, what's that deal where it's like the index, like they have it for clients and they have it for employees.
Net promoter score?
Net promoter score.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do y'all deal with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So for those in the audience, and Net Promoter Score is used emphatically in every other industry. So when we think about consumers, right, we're in the legal services delivery. There's banking, there's healthcare, there is hospitality. And if you look at Net Promoter Scores, they're very well measured across industries. And you see legal services is oftentimes left off of that list because we don't measure it as a industry very well. And all it is a scoring system, right? You take individual scores, of all the Kens out there of 0 to 10, how you're feeling at this time. And you can tell the individual relationship, but then there's an aggregation to Net Promoter Score where you can see the health of the overall firm, right? By taking your promoters, your 9s and 10s, and subtracting your detractors, which are 6 and below. So we incorporate that. So when you talk about getting all of the communications on our platform, between staff and the case management and client on the 5-star app, now we can start at regular intervals saying, how are you feeling? And that's where we can do it historically via survey. But now with AI, we're actually able to look at the messages being sent, the context of what's being said, the tone of what's being said, and we can actually be predictive. So the cool thing I think about, Ken, I don't know if you ride bikes or are into cars, but you have the traditional check engine light, right? You want to know if something's wrong, go to well, now they have BMW and I think Harley Davidson, they have the idea of it's the pre-check engine light, which is, hey, you're not quite at check engine where you need to go to the local service station immediately, but we're sending information back to BMW headquarters and Harley Davidson headquarters, and there's something that's not right. So just call us and let us figure out what's going on. So that's what we're doing. We're looking at all the communications that are coming through and giving a sort of a score, a sentiment score, which is analogous to Net Promoter Score. And that's now getting into the manage what you measure. So if you really, the firms that we work with, it's not just about making it easy for client and staff. Now you get to the hat that you're wearing as a manager or the hat you're wearing as an operator or owner, which is I want to create more 9s and 10s internally before they show up externally on my Google Drive site. And that's what NPS allows you to do is you get the low score. You don't get scared. You have a playbook, right? You see the 6, you execute against the 6. Whereas if you get the 9, you can execute against the 9 and get that mobilize that happy client in the public circles like Google reviews.
So if I remember correctly, the Net Promoter Score is they count nines and tens, seven and eights are neutral, and six and belows are detractors, right? And
That's
then
exactly right. It's
they add it up somehow and come up with a mean score or something like.
yeah.
I heard one time most law firms are like 55.
Actually, it's the only place that is measuring it. I think it's called clearly rated. And they're not looking just at consumer or personal injury. They're looking at all lawyers. And it toggles. So it's a negative 100 to a positive 100 score. So just keep that in mind. And it takes the percentage of nines and tens and subtracts the percentages of six and belows, and it ignores all the sevens and eights. But legal industry has been toggling like a sinusoid between 20 and 40. So 55-ish is considered getting into the excellent range. 60 is kind of excellent. 70 is world-class Amazon. We're not bad. Right now, I think we're in the high 35, 36s. That's the highest that we've sort of seen as an industry over the last 5 years. But to give you an analog, it's like commercial aviation, and again, think about your last experience flying. I mean, we get from A to B, we have to travel, but it leaves a lot to be desired. So I always talk about it as a competitive advantage. If you can get your score, measure your score and drive, and that's the average case status customer is in the 65 range. We actually have an excellence in client satisfaction award that we bestow upon organizations that achieve that 60 plus level for more than 12 months running. But if you can do that, that's a competitive advantage, because now not only are you driving that direct referral and the reviews, but you can now you can market it, right? You can point to a net promoter score, and that kind of shakes up the messaging out there, right?
Yeah, if I was running a firm now, the bonuses for everybody would be tied to that.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because when I was doing it, we didn't have case status or anything like that. So my deal was you had to talk to the client every 30 days. And if you didn't do 90%, you didn't get your quarterly bonus. You had to be above 90. I didn't mean they loved you, but at least you talked to them, right? And you had to put it in the notes.
Yeah.
And if we caught somebody fudging on it, they were immediately fired. And I only had one person in 30 years that fudged on it, because we would backtrack them and call clients randomly to say, okay, we see that you talked to so and so, and they said, no, I ain't talked to them. Well, so we talked to them in 3 months, and then I said, that person's fired.
You were ahead of your time, Ken, because I mean, most of the people I talk to, I hit about a 50%. 50% don't ask at all, and 50% typically ask at the end. The fact that you were doing it every 30 days, awesome, right? Like that's what Net Promoter Score says. Don't do it too frequently, but do it frequently enough so you know what's going on. And you're exactly right. It's not just about your relationships with your clients. It's about also getting all of your staff, right? Opportunities for improvement. If it was a low score and they weren't BSing you, right? You probably sit them aside and say, hey, what can we do to get better, right? Not instead of firing them, right? So that's the idea, right? Part of the client experience game is you do the marketing approach, you set expectations, and then you get the retainer and you bring them in. And the question is, if you're not hitting the thing that you said that you were going to do in the marketing cycle, now buyer's remorse starts kicking in, right? So you need all of your staff to be on board with the high mark that the owners, right, set for those firms long ago.
And I would think, and I know you got the stats because you're data people. Data. That the incoming calls would go down by at least by 30%. I don't know, but maybe more, but at least 30%. Are y'all seeing that?
Yeah, we see that. I mean, we've got case studies like with Sean Lahaki at Pon Lahaki Giordano. They saw a 90% decrease in phone calls.
Oh my God.
So that was different, right? So their Social Security disability shop mainly, and we really were able to cut down on a lot of those calls. But then, right, it's not just about cutting down calls. It's also wanting to have, it's the calls that you don't really need to take, that just take up a lot of time to say, you have this appointment here, or you need to be at this hearing, or here's the update, right? You can get rid of all of that wasteful time, because if you think about it, there's an easier way to send that out. So you're left more with proactive calls, right? So inbound versus outbound. So now to your point, there still is a mark where you want to have that personal touch and you want to, connect with them. But yeah, when they call in, right, you're actually happy that the phone is ringing. You're able to have that conversation. Now you have the breathing room to have that conversation on a more important topic. But typically we see emails go down and phone calls go down, and it's based on the Pareto principle that we take implementation very seriously. So we have a very robust customer success team. And we have very strict milestones about what the onboarding. When you sign up with us, we don't just throw it out there and say, good luck. We want to get your invitations out to your existing clients and your new clients. And we have a very structured approach to that. And when we do it and follow that methodology, we can get 80% or more onto the app. When you do that, you start sunsetting phone, invented 1876 or something like that, right? Email, invented in the 80s, text, invented in the 90s, right? Every time we introduce a communications channel historically, we never sunset it. We are now starting to see with a Pareto principle, 80% or more on the app. And when you're on the app, it's using push notifications. So it's CMS to app and back and forth, right? The text is the backstop. So if the app gets deleted or a new phone gets hacked, you still get through to that number, but we always try to get them on the app. And that just makes things much more efficient. So that's where you start to see the other legacy and all over the place communications to start to decrease, and you get this omni-channel. And again, remember, it's in your case management system, right? When was the last time you could see every communication with that client from your case management system, right? Typically doesn't happen.
And is it, I know everybody's asking this question, so is it cloud-based or?
Yep. Yeah, we are 100% in the cloud. So like most of the case management software as well, right? We run on Amazon Cloud. And not only that, but we're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant. So compliance is a big thing with the cloud. I think we actually started a podcast. I got a lot of respect for, I don't know if you're at 277 episodes, Ken, but wow, running that content is.
I think we're like 285 now.
Yeah, amazing. Well, we're at maybe 5 in ours, and we call it ethical-ish, and we're trying to hit on some of these gray areas, right? As technology advances, as clients advance, right? Where is the gray area of the American Bar Association model rules of professional conduct, et cetera? But one of them that I'm always amazed is folks that go with cloud providers, and there's no certification against a higher standard, right? Again, that's not to take away from startups. We were at that point at one place, but take that seriously in the day and age of client confidentiality and of AI, right? Ring fencing your data and keeping it private. SOC 2 Type 2 is table stakes in many ways, and it is the best guarantee we have that we're keeping bad actors at bay. So we are in the cloud, and we take security very seriously here at Case Status, and want to make sure that that data at rest and that data in transit is always secure between the firm and the client.
So what is the basis? How do you charge? You charge per client, or you charge per staff, or how do you?
So the pricing model, yeah. So it's different than case management. So typically, and I can't speak for all case managements, but for the ones I've seen, it's based on like staff user. How many users do you have? Yeah. So we've got a slightly different model, which is based on the number of active annual cases. Now that can, in a personal injury firm, it kind of makes a direct sense. And I think that's the one that translates well. If you're immigration, it can be a little bit weirder because a lot of the work is to submit it to the USCIS. And then you go into this dark bureaucratic weight game, right? And so is that an active case or not? That gets into something else. But yeah, it's basically active cases that you have running at any one time. But once it reaches case closed, we don't charge for that, but you can continue to engage. And that's the beauty of sort of engaging in the client lifecycle via the 5-star app. Once the client has an outcome, right? A jury verdict or a settlement check, we can still, maintain that marketing touch, right? You can hit them every birthday with a message. You can hit them on their settlement date with a congratulations. It was a year ago when we were able to make that happen. So ongoing for that sort of drip channel. So it's not just about client engagement today, because you might get that referral from Thanksgiving dinner 2 years from now. So you got to stay. So that's the thing that we also like with our solution, is it has the ability to do those marketing drips and to stay top of mind with your client alumni over the long time horizon, because you may not bring them back to the firm, but they definitely will have influence in their circles to bring you referrals. And if they're happy forever.
So y'all been in business six years. Yep. So how many lawyers have you serviced? Law firms?
Oh, lawyers, not sure, but we're in the hundreds of law firms. So somewhere between, I think, 500 and 1,000. I don't have the count. Yeah, we seek to, and we're working with large, what we would call enterprise firms, down to solo shops. So we've got a mix of different firms and teams to address those different needs. We just did a webinar last week where we interviewed a C-suite. So we had a CEO, a COO, a general manager, and a chief legal officer, and we were talking about so we can help on the ROI game at that level with some of the larger firms. But yeah, hundreds of firms. I think the other interesting thing is when we think about consumers, I think we've serviced over 2 million Americans, right? So when we think about the everyday people that the law firms are serving, that's where, it's not just about the firms and the lawyers and the staff, but it's also who are their touch points. And I mentioned again the social proof of the app. Like that's where the clients give a lot of feedback. You can even go to a lot of our law firms. So again, if you went to Pond Hockey and looked at their Google reviews, it's really cool to see. You can actually search on terms used in the reviews, and you can look at communication and all the typical ones, but you'll actually find case status listed out in a lot of their reviews, that it really does help with that relationship. But we seek to influence more and inspire the marketplace. We are having our first annual conference, the CX Summit. That'll be this fall. We've just commissioned our first CX, and by CX we're leaning into the client experience side, because we don't believe that there is any immersive focus on that in the legal tech space. So Client Experience Summit this fall, but also the Client Experience Report. So we're always inspired by the folks that are doing research in our space, the service providers that take a step back and try to do some surveying and some measuring to bring some first party data. So we're going to initiate that on the client experience front and continue to lean into trying to help more firms out there and inspire the whole industry to move in a good direction.
Yeah, I mean that's what my whole firm was based on. Our whole big deal was, our differentiator was that it was client service. It really wasn't that we could get you the most money, although I thought we did a good job, but everybody said that, so I wanted to say something different. And so we had a client bill of rights, we had an advocate hotline. We didn't have case status back then, but we did a lot of things. I mean, I had a rule that when you talk to a client, you put grandma at the end of the sentence. If you want to talk to grandma that way, you don't talk to the clients that way. You could never talk negatively about another client in front of another staff member, because I always say, but for the grace of God, go you never know what these people are going through. And even though we spent millions of dollars on advertising, 43% of our cases came from old clients, not lawyers, not doctors, but old clients. And I think that really made a difference. We were really zeroed in on that. We had a client service manual. Before you could work with me, you had to take a test after you read the manual.
Wow.
And if you didn't score 80%, you couldn't work with us. So I was focused in on it. I just didn't know anything about technology, right?
Well, that's the most important thing, right? We're trying to enable true client first firms, like yourself, to just make it easier, make it more scalable, make it more modern. But philosophically, you got to nail it with what you're saying, right? You can't talk the talk without really believing it in your heart at how your firm functions, right? So I think that's key is we need to find firms, but most it's awesome. I'm not a lawyer. I've been in the legal tech space now for a few years. Before that, we worked with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of mission-based organization at a software company before. I'm amazed every attorney I meet, for the most part, is altruistic at heart. They want to help people, right? So that's the cool thing about what we're trying to do. Sounds like you were a little bit better at enacting some procedures and methodology to help your firm actually do that, which was smart. But again, I think that our hope is that every attorney out there genuinely wants to help, the little everyday person who's going up against the big odds, and wants to do that in a way that is, again, they don't know what they don't know, right? If I have to hire you, Ken, I don't have any frame of reference, right? I find you, you're recommended. But what I'm looking for is just to come out feeling good, right? Feeling like you fought for me, that justice was served. I had trust throughout the old process, right? Those are the things that psychologically make the difference on the other end of the relationship.
And I love that. One of the things I teach is, like, there's 3 phases of marketing: one before representation, which everybody does; one during representation, which I think, give them a good client experience, which case status helps with. And then the third one, which most lawyers never, I think they're doing it more now, but they used to never do it. I did it a lot, was stay market after representation, stay in front of them, top of mind awareness. And it looks like this automates a lot of that. So I think it's a hell of a program because it makes easy what I was trying to do dinosaur years, because I was sending letters, I was sending emails, I was sending postcards, I was
Yeah, a
doing
lot of work.
a lot of work, a lot of
Yeah.
work. Yeah, but it does pay off. I know it pays off. I mean, those are the cheapest clients, and your best clients is the ones that get referred from other clients. And not just counting the bar complaints, but I think it's a good
Right.
marketing too.
It is. And I'll leave a rule of thumb with your listeners out there, which just keeping this in mind. I mean, as I look at when you think about your clients, whether they're happy or not happy, the unhappy ones are 9 to 16 times more likely to be vocal, right? So two things. You want to minimize that, right? You don't want to ever get that 1-star review if you can avoid it and have those conversations early. But the other side is true as well. So for your listeners out there, if you have a 9 and 10, 1 in 10 will actually leave you a review or give you a referral proactively. You got to
Yeah.
ask, and it moves to 8 out of 10. So
You
make
know,
the ask, right?
that makes sense. I used to tell my staff, I said, and I think the research was different 25 years ago, but I said, if we get a client that's happy, they might tell 1 or 2 people. But if
Yep,
a client leaves unhappy, they're going to tell 10 to 20. I
that's
mean, and
right.
I just kind of what you're saying now, actually a little worse probably, but I believe that. I mean, because people will share bad shit. They
Yeah.
don't really care about sharing good stuff. I don't, for whatever reason, but
Well,
uh,
it's for the greater good, right? It's in our nature for the best of society if you can get the bad. I mean, think about it from an
yeah,
attorney standpoint, right? You're on the side of right, right? You're trying to serve justice against,
yeah,
people that so, they're serving their own if they feel that they've been unjustified, like they think they're helping other people. And so more power to them. For us, we got to just get in front of it, right? Everybody loves. That's the other thing that I'll leave your audience with on the data side that I love, which is 0 to 5 scale. A 5 that came up from a 1 or a 2 is always stronger than the 4 or 5 that started there. Now, that's not to say to go out there and get your ones and then turn them around. That's too much work. But everybody loves a comeback, and everybody appreciates somebody who goes above and beyond to listen and to react and put that feedback loop to work. So keep that in mind when you get the 6, celebrate it at some level that you're getting it internally, and that you have time to turn it around, because that might be your loudest advocate when they do become a 9.
I agree. I mean, because I've seen it in real live action. Is that yeah? If you take somebody that's disgruntled about something and you actually fix it or do your best to fix it, sometimes you
Yep,
can't. But if you try, I call that turning lemons into lemonade.
there you go.
And that's the big key is you got to know it. And the problem is sometimes they never tell you. That's why I had the advocate hotline, because I wanted them to anytime they had a problem. And half the times it wasn't a problem; it was just them being unreasonable. But the deal is you can't fix something if you don't know about it, right?
That's right.
I mean, I've always said that. We want to get better, and the only way we get better is know. What we don't know, we can't fix. Well, listen, that's great. I enjoyed this. This brings me back old memories. Talking about new technology, bringing back old memories. That's crazy. Uh, and I know y'all give free demos if somebody wants to do a demo or see how it works, or what's the best way for them to get up with somebody and find out more about case status?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to practice, what we preach, which is we want to meet you where you're at. So to me, as a marketer, those of you out there, there's awareness. Hopefully, we brought a little bit of awareness here. There's consideration. So check out our website. Some of the things that I love there is there's self-paced demos. So, you can go through and you can look at that client experience. You can look at the staff experience, depending on your case management system, you can be that specific. So you can self-pace it. We do have the podcasts and several different webinars that we do on thought leadership topics. Check that out. All of that recorded content is available, blogs, etc. But the idea is to not say buy case status to buy case status, right? It's to educate you on why client engagement, client experience is good for your business, right? That you can scale it in a good way, and that it's going to pay an ROI. If we build that awareness and that consideration, and then you talk to our team about the solution and where we will hit your top line, bottom line, or both to justify the investment. That's where it's really powerful. And that's the conversation we want to have. We don't want to tie you into an agreement on a subscription just to have you not be happy on the other end. We want to do it where you come out and you're like, holy crap, I was able to produce, dividends on the bottom line and top line and put them back in, and I've got incremental gains that we can do. So on the website, but our team is always at the ready, right? Let's talk, get to our subject matter experts. We'll put together a demo. They're always on the road. I can't keep up with the young folks that are at your conference and every other one, Ken, but check us out. If you see the booth, go talk to the team. Again, a lot of good information.
Y'all were at our PILMA Super Summit last week in Denver.
Was a great show. Yeah, we and again, you talk to me, you talk to any of us, we're all working from the same mission. So it doesn't matter who's wearing the case status briefcase. We're all at the ready to help you understand what your pains are, what's keeping you up at night, what you want to fix, how you want to be more competitive in your space, and let's have that conversation.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.